And I think we're live, Brian. Hello, Lab Coat agents. Welcome to Cash Call, our weekly show with myself, Dale Archdeacon, and Brian Curtis, where we pull apart and talk about the most effective ways for you to convert those leads, those elusive leads that you're chasing around out there and that you're spending tons of money on and that you're sweating over. So, with no further ado, Brian, what's our topic today?
Sign calls. And honestly, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I really feel like it's an undervalued asset, for lack of a better way to put it, in 2019. And I love sign calls. If, the only thing I like more than a sign call is a referral. So these are great leads. And if you don't hear anything else today, hear that. These are great leads. And, I think the last statistic I heard is that 38% of sign calls close. So,
oh yeah, it's huge. It's really high. And just to be fair and clear, in my experience, I don't know if you the same experience that you've had as a coach working with people from across the country. Some markets get a lot of sign calls. It's still an effective thing. And in some markets, they really don't get many sign calls at all. Have you experienced that?
I haven't heard that much. I think perhaps, and this is one of the things that's happening in 2019, there's two things that I think lead to that. First of all, if you want more sign calls, don't put a pending sign or under contract sign on your sign. I know that sounds kind of like a dumb thing to say, but if you're looking for more buyers, don't put that on. If you're looking for sellers, then that's okay, although I lean towards not putting those signs up. Other things that I've heard is, if you've got 3 listings, that it's a little bit harder to expect a lot of sign calls. And that's not to diss on anybody, but one of the weird problems that we have in the last 2 years is I put a sign in the yard and the thing sells in a day and a half. It's
Right.
hard to get sign calls when I don't have any signs. And I know it's a little bit simplistic, but statistically across the country, you can expect 0.75 phone calls per sign per week. So if you have 100 signs out there, you should get 75 calls a week is the math on that.
Great. Excellent. Wonderful. So, you know what, Brian? We were talking just before we got on here, and we also need to clarify that there are a couple different kind of sign calls, right?
Absolutely.
So sign calls can be just, hey, I have my for sale sign up with my pretty brand logo on it, right? And somebody calls that, local number and asks a question about the property. Or the other one, what's the one that your team runs?
So we do that, by the way. So we do both. The other thing we use is an IVR system, and I should know what IVR stands for, but I don't. So basically what it is, it's a 1-800 number, and when someone calls in, they'll call in 1-800 number, and they'll have an extension. My sign says, for 24-hour recorded information, call 1-800, blah, 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 extension 1234. What's the significance of that? The significance of that for me is that person is calling, and we always talk about intent, and I love that you and I are on the same page there. The intent of that person is not to talk to a human being. The intent of that person is to listen to a phone call or listen to some information, that's available 24 hours a day. So that's another thing. You mentioned a lot of people aren't getting sign calls. You might actually consider switching to some sort of IVR system because you'll get more phone calls. Now, those sign calls do not close at 38%, but you have an opportunity. And if you're a good salesperson, we close those at probably 12%. So, which again, it's still a really, really good lead source.
Yeah, and let's just clarify why that is, because it's similar to the difference between a Facebook lead and a PPC lead, right?
Absolutely.
Where what you're doing is for somebody to just look at your for sale sign, that blank average branded sign with a phone number on it, and they don't know what they're going to get. They don't know what's going to happen when they call it. They have to have a lot of intention. They have to have the intention to ask a question of a salesperson or speak to a salesperson in order to get some kind of information or make an action happen, versus the IVR stuff, which says, hey, here's what's going to happen, and it's going farther up the intention, up the sales funnel, which says, hey, if you'd like some information without talking to a salesperson, then do this, take this action, right? And they're like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can take that action and get some info and not talk to a salesperson. That makes it easier, which is why you end up with a lower conversion rate on those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then we also have like everyday open houses, similar, right? That may have a little bit more intention to it. it's those buyers who otherwise would be going to an open house, right? Who don't necessarily want to talk to an agent yet, but they are just starting that search. So they'll call in to find out about the everyday open house so that they can see the property. Basically,
Absolutely.
everyday open house is suggesting, hey, call this number and we'll let you in the house, right?
Any day.
Any day, anytime.
Absolutely.
Good. All right. So we've got the intention down with these. So Brian, why don't you go ahead and talk? Why don't you give us a couple of your scripts for when people first call in? Do the straight sign call and then do the IVR.
So my straight sign call is real simple, and don't make this complex as far as I'm concerned. Someone calls and say, hey, which house are you calling about? Well, I'm in front of 123 Main Street. Absolutely. So what kind of questions do you have, and would you like to set up an appointment to take a look at it? I'm pretty aggressive with those. I ask them if they have any questions, but I follow it up with, I'd be happy to set up an appointment for you to come and take a look at it. I want, my thought is if you're driving in your car, and I'm going to hammer intent a little bit more, that person is literally sitting in front of this house. They like something about this house. They like the neighborhood. You're not going to get that weird objection you get, sometimes when people show houses, you get feedback and they say, we didn't like the neighborhood. I'm like, well, you should have known about the neighborhood before you went and look at it. You don't have that objection. This person is sitting there in front of this house. And again, intent, they called and they said they knew they were going to, their goal was to speak to an agent, right? And that's the thing that I really, really want to harp with this, with a straight up sign call. Their goal was to actually talk to a human being about this house. So, my thought is get in there right away. What kind of questions do you have? And by the way, I'd be happy to set up an appointment for you to take a look at it. So that's my standard sign call thing. If, in my opinion, don't make it any more complex. How about you?
Pretty much the same thing. And so we really get into it quick. They're going to call about the property. We just identify what the property is. And here's the thing. For you individual agents out there, or if you're on a smaller team and these leads just get piped straight to you and you're standing in line at the grocery store, or you're driving in your car, or you're picking up your dry cleaning, or whatever you're doing, and you get that call and they ask, hey, I want to find out about 123 Main Street or whatever, right? Just say, hey, great, what would you like to know about 123 Main Street? They're going to ask whatever question. In some cases, it might be, can we see that property? So we're going to talk about this too, Brian. I'm sitting in the driveway. Can I see it now? Right? What do you do then? Let's do that. That's fun.
Let's do that. That's fun. Hey, Dale, I'm sitting in the driveway, 123 Main Street. I'd like to come take a look at it. What do we do with that?
Yeah. Hey, that sounds wonderful. I'd love to get you into that property as soon as possible. I'm going to have to check with the owners to coordinate it with them. So, how long have you been looking in the neighborhood? Are you currently working with an agent? Blah, 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 right?
Perfect. It's the same scripts that we've talked about all along. It's just starting out with a little bit different on the front end, right?
Absolutely. And you're just going to have to redirect that stuff. So do you have any other interesting or fun way to handle, I'm sitting in the driveway, can I see it now?
I wish I did. Sometimes depending on how close it is, I might say I can be there in 15 minutes. If you're willing to do that. And honestly, it's funny. We talked about in team meeting today, your level of hunger. Sometimes you're more hungry than other times. Sometimes I'm, sitting in my pajamas and I'm like, great, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And I, go screaming out of the house. I don't actually advocate that, but
now let's ask this, Brian. Is there any kind of qualification that you do first so that you don't go screaming out of your house to meet with somebody with no money and who already has another agent in their car with them?
I'm probably going to do a little bit of qualification. It would go something like this. So, Dale, you're sitting in the driveway. Obviously, you've got some interest. Sounds like you'd want to take a look at that house. Where are you at in the buying process? Is probably what I would ask somebody in that scenario. And hopefully they're going to spew. Now, a lot of people are very close to the vest. So they'll be like, well, we're just looking, or we just started looking, or we've been looking for a while. Okay, now I got to dig deeper. So now I'm going to say, great, out of curiosity, if you talk to a lender, if you guys love this house today, they're going to want a pre-qual letter. Is that something that you've done already?
That sounds good. Yeah, that's a great way to present it. Blame it on the sellers. If you really love this house, they're going to require a pre-qualification letter.
Absolutely. And, by the way, if you're having problem getting people pre-qualified, that's how you do it. If we find the house that you love, the listing agent is not probably even going to present the offer unless you have a pre-qualification letter. Now, in my state, that's illegal to not do that, but nonetheless, we're making the point that there's a real good chance that a seller isn't interested in your offer even at full price if you don't have some sort of proof that you can consummate the closing. So at the end of the day, give people a reason to do it. And you're just like me. I love to blame everybody else, the seller, the lender, the buyer, whoever it is. It's not my fault, but I'll help you solve the problem of this jerk over here. So.
Right, exactly. And so a little bit different way that we phrase it also, in addition to that, for instance, might be, somebody who's really interested in seeing the property. Hey, you know what? I really want to show this to you. Unfortunately, the sellers are requiring that anybody who books an appointment is pre-qualified. So if you just talk to my lender for like 5 minutes, they can have a quick conversation with you, and we can book the appointment and get in there. That will satisfy them.
And that's an awesome way to pass that over to the lender, and that'll make people really happy. Or heck, who knows? They might just send you a pre-qual. Great, I've got one. But
hey, that's great.
Yeah. So, and it's kind of about intent. So you asked me this question. Let me take a step back. I'm going to pre-qual them a little bit, but I am still a fan. And this is a very unpopular thing, by the way, that I'm about to say. As a rule, stop pre-qualifying people until you get in front of them. And not necessarily, but for the most part, I feel like a lot of times we over pre-qualify people because we don't want to go show the house.
I think the internet just broke. I think the internet just broke because you said that, Brian.
Hey, it is what it is, and Eric Eby on my team says this all the time. Any real estate conversation is a good conversation. So, go and have those conversations, get face to face as quickly as possible. And, does that mean that every once in a while you're going to show a house to somebody who can't afford to pay attention? Yes, that does happen. But you lose more transactions trying to pre-qualify people, in my opinion, than you lose by running around with people. Because most people are not going to go want to look at a whole bunch of houses if they can't buy one. I'm not saying nobody, because there are those people. But for the most part, people have good intentions. They want to buy a house. And, give people the benefit of the doubt and stop trying to think that everybody's a jerk, I guess, is kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah. So you know what? I mean, I can agree with that also. What you do is, I do hear too many agents and sometimes ISAs get immediately jump to, are you pre-qualified? First of all, pre-qualified is an industry term that you shouldn't be using anyway, right? You shouldn't use that with your average consumer. Where you need to start is, hey, have you spoken to a lender yet? Or are you planning on buying in cash, right? Oh, no, I can't buy in cash. I haven't talked to a lender yet, though. I want to find the right house first. Oh, okay. So now we come down to this thing, right? So we all know that there are those people that are really difficult about getting pre-qualified or about talking to a lender first. And then there are those people that you can cajole into talking to a lender, right? So with the people that you can kind of coerce into talking to the lender, that's great. But when you have those people that are really resistant to it, you can just ask some really simple questions to do your own kind of digging and determine whether they fall into the bucket that you're talking about, which is they're probably going to be able to do something, right?
Absolutely.
So what's your, have you thought about a budget? What monthly payment are you comfortable with? Or, if somebody starts talking like, oh, well, we want to spend between 200 and 300,000, we want to keep our payment here and blah, blah, blah. I want to be close to my work. You can start to get a sense of whether or not they're going to be able to qualify. And then you can ask them, great, so how much were you planning on putting down? Or how did you want to use financing, right? Were you planning on financing a lot or financing a little, right? And just get their story from them. And the more story they have, the more likely it is they're going to be able to do something.
Absolutely. And I think where we've, as an industry, have failed is the reason that we're asking the question. I know that sounds a little bit silly. So if we're asking a pre-qualification finance question to figure out how we can help somebody, it's different than if we're asking a pre-qualification question so we don't have to show an unqualified buyer.
To disqualify them.
Yes. So, if you're on their team, it's different. And so if I ask somebody, I heard you say, are you going to do financing or cash? I always flip that a little bit. So are you guys going to pay cash or are you planning on doing some financing? So a guy's looking at a $125,000 house and I'm asking if they're going to pay cash. They probably aren't going to pay cash unless they're an investor. But my point is, no one's insulted if I just ask them if they have $125,000 that they want to throw at a house. No one's going to be insulted by that. But when you ask somebody, so are you pre-qualified? They're like, and again, to your point, that's an industry term.
Yeah.
A, they may not know what it means. And then B, a lot of people that I spoke to get insulted. Like, of course I'm pre-qualified. Why the hell am I calling you if I'm not pre-qualified? So, understand that people get very offended, by the way that we talk to them. So making the assumption that they are qualified and then tweaking it a little bit is a much more positive way to go about that. And people will respond significantly better in that, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so with these sign calls, so we talked about the people that are calling straight in. Mm-hmm. The people, did we do any scripting around the people that are calling just for information? How do you make that flip, right?
Absolutely, and I'm happy to do that. For those of you who aren't familiar with the IVR programs, basically what you do is they call into that number, you put an extension in, you'll hear beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bath home on 1.38, whatever it says. It's going to basically give it a description. That description should run anywhere between 15 and 30 seconds. If you have more than 30 seconds, unless you just have a gigantic house, you're being way too flowery. At the end of that, it'll say something to the effect, mine says, if you'd like more information, please say yes. Now, one of the things that I'm not giving them during this thing is I don't give them the price. So probably 70% of them are going to say yes. And by the way the IVR system works, the agent's on hold while the buyer's listening to the pre-recorded thing. So what they're going to do is when they say yes, all of a sudden you're going to hear them click on. You say, hey, this is Brian. What house are you looking at? I know that seems like a weird script because I actually know what house they're looking at, but I want to get them to, I want to kind of startle them and just get them to start thinking about that, so they're not going to go and say the standard thing that we hear, I'm just calling about the price. And I'll go over about that. Go ahead. Yeah,
Brian, isn't there like a prompt that says, if you'd like to, did you say that if you'd like to know the price, press this number?
It's so on mine, and each IVR is a little bit different. It says, if you'd like more information, say yes.
Got it. Okay. So that's really important. Listen, if you're an agent, you should know what the hell your message says, right? So that you're prepared to talk to them appropriately. If you're an ISA watching this, call the number. Make sure that you know what that person has been prompted with. Because as we all know, just like calling any kind of customer service thing, the thing that annoys me the most when you call up some kind of customer service thing and they're like, you get this automated thing, please enter your customer number and enter your name and enter your shoe size, right? And you do all that shit on your phone, you enter it all in, and guess what? Somebody in India answers the phone and says, hi, may I know your customer number, please? And I'm like, I just entered that shit. Why do I have to go through this again, right?
Right. We have no patience.
Right. Same thing. If they are calling in something, I want you to know exactly what they just heard and what their intention is or what they think is going to happen. And then you need to make that happen when they speak to you, right? So if it says, press 1 to hear the price of this property, and it gets shot over to you and it doesn't tell you what the address is, you better answer the phone and say, hi, this is so-and-so. I'd love to give you the price about the property you're looking at. What's the address? Right? That's how you make it sound right.
So, and to Dale's point, what we're doing, and this is a huge thing that, let me just say this, it's 2019, not 1989. The reason I say that is sales training 20, 30, 40 years ago was close, 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 close. And what we found is that's not what today is about. Today is about give people information, build rapport with them, and then close. But the days of Glengarry Glen Ross, for those of you who've seen the movie, still a great movie, they don't work anymore. No. Savvy to it, and what you come across as is a sleazy salesperson. So amazing.
Come across like an 80s movie.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to come across like Glengarry, which again, by the way, great movie, one of my favorites. But so let's deal with this, because this is something that's going to happen. And I thought about this when we were talking about just regular sign calls. One of the things that you're going to get is, I'm just calling about the price, right? Isn't that the standard thing? Yeah. Dale, which property are you calling about? I'm calling about 123 Main Street. Great. How can I help? I just want to know the price. And that's going to happen, especially on the 1-800 number. That's going to happen 7 out of 10 times. Expect that. And that's okay, because guess what? If we have a script to deal with it, if we have the ability to deal with it, it's pretty easy. So I'll go over my way, and then, maybe you can share yours as well. Sure. So I use acknowledge, respond, pivot. So it's ARP, A-R-P, and acknowledge. So, hey, Dale, so you just want to know the price of 123 Main Street? Great. The price of 123 Main Street is $337,000. Out of curiosity, what's your price point? Or what price point are you looking at? So what I did with that is I acknowledged what they said. And by the way, that is, anybody who's ever been in marriage counseling, they'll tell you, acknowledge the person. So, acknowledge that you actually heard what they said. Respond. And this is one of my pet peeves. People won't answer a question. They're afraid to give people information. What's your commission? Well, let me tell you all blah, blah, blah. No, I just asked you what your commission was. Same thing here. I didn't ask you why it was priced. I didn't ask you how you priced it and when you priced it. I just asked you what the freaking price was. So the price is $337,000. And then I pivot. And here's the key with this, if you're going to use this technique, is there's no pause between $337,000 and, out of curiosity, what is your price, the price that you're looking at? There's no, because if you say $337,000 and that's not their price point and you don't finish the script, they'll go, great, thanks, and hang up on you.
Right. Yeah, because their budget's $250 and they're like, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk to an agent anyway. I'm not sure how the heck I ended up speaking to this guy. So, it's just that acknowledge, respond, pivot. And all we're doing is we've acknowledged them. We've given them the answer for what they called for. And now we're going to talk about what we want to talk about. And again, you guys have heard me say this. Out of curiosity, what price point are you guys looking at? I don't feel like most people are going to be offended by that.
So that's excellent, Brian. I think that's really great for everybody that's listening. I want to test you one more. What happens when you're in line at the grocery store and you either don't know the address or you don't know the price, right? So let's say it's a listing with your team and you're like, oh shit, I don't know that one. So what do you do?
Okay, so I'll tell you two things. Get an IVR that when you're listening to it tells you the address and the price, which is one of the But let's say that I was not paying attention and I lost it. So, or you were just a straight sign call. I can say, which property are you calling about? I'm calling about 123 Main Street. Listen, Adele, I want to make sure I give you the right information about that. I'm going to call you back here in about 3 minutes. I need to look up a couple of quick things. In the meantime, out of curiosity, what are you guys looking for? So good. I can literally look on my phone, and here's the thing. Sometimes agents do that even if they know the answer to the question. They gives them a time to actually go and say, okay, so I'll look up the price. What are you guys looking for? What price point are you at? Or, what kind of house are you looking for while I'm looking that up? And so you can be looking that up and they can be telling you, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, under 400, whatever it is. And now they're talking. And guess what? Is the more they're talking, the more you're winning.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I want to give everybody this. So all of that stuff is great. I've actually, in the past, we've run really large like ISA teams and needed to have like a third-party phone service like a physician would use, right?
Yeah.
Like an answering service, right? And so what we discovered with the answering service, because the answering service, we couldn't give them all of our listings. We had like hundreds of listings, right? They're not going to look through that shit, right? But they're the first line of contact for these potential leads that are coming in. So the script that we gave them was something to the effect of, hi, this is so-and-so with whatever real estate. How can I help you? The person asks, hey, I want to know about 123 Main Street. Great. What would you like to know? What's the price on that property? Oh, you know what? We're going to have to consult with the listing agent on that one. Let us, what's your name and what's your phone number and what's your email address? And let me see if they're available to give you that information, right? They wait for a second. They come back on the phone. Hey, you know what? The listing agent's not available at the moment. I'm going to have them get in touch with you as soon as possible, right? So that was the answering service. And then I was like, shit, man, you know what? Let's just use that, right? So whenever the ISAs get a sign call in, they do the same thing. Great. What's your phone number? Who am I speaking with? What's your phone number? What's your email address? Let me check with a listing agent and see if I can get you the most current info. Hold on for a second. They'd get off the line. They'd come back on. Now we've captured their info. There's no chance of them hanging up and disappearing on us. Now we can tell them stuff and we can ask them questions. So that was a script that came out of just having the necessity for having an answering service.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, ultimately, and by the way, what Dale just talked about, I'm going to go into my legal mode for a second. Be careful if you have an ISA that's unlicensed. In my state, they can't provide the price. So keep that in mind. If you're an agent out there, understand what the rules are. In my state, to provide the purchase price or the asking price of a house, you have to be licensed. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah, something to think about. So, but yeah, the reality is the majority of the people watching this are probably not running an ISA program. They're probably running it, through themselves. So, do you ever suggest hanging up and calling back in that scenario? So let's say that you don't know the price, you don't have the ability to look it up right now. Are you going to say, hey, I'll call you back in 10 minutes? Or are you, what do you feel is the best way to do there?
So if somebody calls me out of the blue and I don't know the address, I'm going to say, they're going to say, yeah, I want to know the price of whatever street. Oh, got it. Okay. You want to know the price of whatever street. Is there anything else you'd like to know about the property? Right. And they're going to either say yes or no. Nope. Just want to know the price. Okay. Got it. You know what? I want to make sure I get you the right info. I'm going to have to check with the listing agent, or I'm going to have to check with the seller to see if I say listing agent, you can say that in some cases. If you don't want to say listing agent and sound like you're not the person in control, what you're going to say is, you know what, we have a lot of listings. I'm going to need to check the records for the most updated price, and I want to get back to you on that.
Absolutely.
So what price range are you looking in, right? And then you're just going to pivot exactly like you do.
Gotcha. And let me make this suggestion to you guys too. So I'd like to think that we're all have the ability to be sitting in front of our computers and have all this information at our fingertips all the time. But for us, what we've got is a running document, by the way, that we keep, that I can basically push one button on my phone and pulls up a list of every single listing that we have and the price of it. So, the thing that I hate to do, and I'll do it if I have to, but I hate to have to call somebody back. The reason I hate that is because there's a chance they won't answer. And again, 38%, I want these people, and I want to close them, and I want to close them now.
So, definitely.
If you have that, just a little trick, make a Google sheet, make a Dropbox sheet, whatever you use, but something that literally you can go to your phone, push one button, it pulls up that list so that you can have that information if you need it.
Well, let's make this clear then, Brian. You never, 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 ever, 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 ever let somebody off the phone before you do a full discovery with them.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what you know or don't know, regardless of what answer you have or don't have, you do not let them off the phone until you do a full discovery with them, right?
100%.
Because the likelihood of you getting them back on the phone again is much lower than you getting them on the phone the first time. Absolutely.
And, to Dale's, we made this point a couple of weeks ago, make the appointment. They're sitting outside your house, and, you're a buyer's agent on the team. You don't even know if the status of this house, and they say, great, we want to see the house tomorrow at 3:00. Set the appointment. Don't call them back. Set the freaking appointment. And the reason you set the freaking appointment is because they will answer your phone about 95% of the time if you're calling to cancel. But they'll only answer about 25% of the time if you're calling to set the appointment. So take that opportunity. I promise you, the majority of the time, if you have to cancel, they'll take your call. Or you can leave a message, hey, Dale, I know we got that appointment at 3:00 tomorrow. Something's come up. I need to talk to you, get that rescheduled. Or even as, hey, just give me a call about that property. I just got something I need to discuss with you. Because you can even say, look, that property's under contract, but we can still go take a look at it. Which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of. Go show the property. Who knows? So, because I can face with somebody, that's better. And it really doesn't matter whether I'm face to face in the office, in a house, wherever it is, their house, whatever it is, any opportunity I have to get face to face. So many agents do this. Oh, I'm sorry, that house is pending. Is there anything else you want to see? Nope, you're screwed. So, hey, that house is pending, but you know what? There's a good chance it hasn't been through an inspection period yet. Why don't we just go take a look at it in case you like it? Worst case scenario, we'll get to meet and I get an idea what you like, and maybe we can figure out if we want to work together or not.
We can see a couple of other similar homes nearby.
Exactly.
So you can make it with your time.
Yeah, don't let a pending or under contract, whatever you guys call it in your market, keep you from meeting the person. And I've seen it over and over again. I'm sorry, that house is under contract. Well, it's great talking with you. Like, no, don't do it.
Yeah, the worst thing I've heard, right, is Somebody calls up and they're like, oh, I want to know about whatever street. And the agent's like, oh, hold on a second. Tiki-taki, tiki-taki. What address? You said what street? Tiki-taki, tiki. Let me find. Oh, that's not the right one. Hold on a second. They're still looking for it, right? Oh, I found it. Oh, it's under agreement. So, are you buying a house, right? Like,
yeah, not with you.
You wasted an enormous amount of time. You screwed up and told them that you don't have anything they want, and now you want to try to have a conversation with them. And the next thing you hear is click.
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing you say, Dal, and I agree with it, is go into discovery as quickly as possible. Placate them, and maybe that's not the right word. Give them the information that they need, but get into discovery as quick as possible, because if you don't have what they want, at least we've built some rapport, and I can go, Dale, unfortunately that house is under contract. I'll be happy to show it to you. You say no big deal. So there's 3 or 4 other houses I'm sure I can find that might meet your criteria. Are you available today or tomorrow? Which day works better for you? Just slot close them, and
there you go. Beautiful. All right, Brian, I think we've given them enough nuggets for today. They're shocked. They're in awe. I don't think they can consume any more from us. It was great seeing you again. Everybody, I hope that was helpful. If you guys ever have any questions or needs or scripts or anything like that, just reach out to either Brian or I. We're super easy to find. Or you can just tag us in the group. But thanks for joining us for Cash Call.
Hey, I'm gonna finish with a little promo. It's less than 30 days that Dal and I will be doing a presentation at Lab Coats Live. So I hope that everybody who's watching, we get an opportunity to meet you. I can't wait to go. The Del Coronado is an amazing place. If you don't even care about real estate, just go to the conference, because it's an amazing place to be in San Diego. So obviously, love you to go and learn some great stuff. There's going to be some amazing people there. So we look forward to seeing everybody here in about a month.
Yeah, and you know what we want, Brian, is we want people to come up to us and say, hey, I watch Cash Call, and you guys kick ass.
That's what I want to hear.
Nice. All right.
Awesome.
See you, man.
Bye.